Our Lifelong Learning Institute is moving forward. Middle of March till April, middle of April, the classes will be held. Everything's in order. We just had one last piece that came through last week, so we're good to go. You're gonna start seeing things. You'll be able to sign up in January. So, keep your eye out for that, and we hope you're all able to come and enjoy the sessions that we have. And Scott, I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Jim. Got my notes here, right behind me. Dr. Michele is a British American biomechanical engineer who joined us in August of 2022 when she took on the role of Dean of the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences, which we all know now is the College of Nanotechnology, Science, and Engineering. Dean majored in biomedical engineering and engineering mechanics with a minor in French from
Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins. It was there a minute ago. It printed in blue and she got her master's and PhD degree there. Prior to joining UAlbany, you're going to have to help me with this. Is that Willenga? Prior to joining UAlbany, she was the Willenga Creative Engineering Endowed Professor of Mechanical Engineering and Biomedical Engineering at Michigan State University. She previously spent 25 years at Wayne State University in Detroit, where she established the undergraduate and graduate programs in biomedical engineering, as well as the Department of Biomedical Engineering. Dean Grimm served as the program director at the National Science Foundation for 3 programs within the engineering directorate: disability and rehabilitation engineering, engineering of biomedical systems, and biomechanics of mechanology.
Mechanobiology, mechanics and mechanobiology.
I lost an entire syllable. While at the NSF, she also served on the White House Task Force on Aging Adults. But her time in the Motor City was also spent in the nitty-gritty sport of auto racing. I got all this information from UAlbany News. She was ushered into the sport by her parents. Dr. Grimm mastered timing and scoring and became a scrutineer. And I had to just mention that because I had never heard that word before. That's a tech inspector.
Yep.
Working on Formula One races from 1982 to 2021. And based on this experience, she has so much experience in so many areas, but based on this experience, she served as the faculty advisor for Wayne State University's Formula SAE team. She was the first woman internationally to serve as an FSAE faculty advisor and the first biomedical engineer. Enough of my intro. Let's welcome Dr. Michele Grimm.
Thank you very much.
Record.
Already done. I fumbled with that while the other things were being sorted out. So, well, thank you. I'm happy to be here. The point of the fact that I advised the Formula SAE team, which is a group of students who design and build small race cars, 600cc engines. As a biomedical engineer, a lot of times I could find equivalent systems between the human body and the car. That wasn't a problem, except for the engine. I could not find an equivalent system, but I'd spent so much of my life around race cars that I could at least give them those connections. And so did that for many, many years. So I'm happy to be here to give you a little bit of an update on what at the time we came up with the title of the college was the newest college at the University of Albany, but is now the second newest college at UAlbany with the establishment of the College of Integrated Health Sciences this fall. So as a newbie in 2022, I thought I had understood what the history was. So I was brought in as the second dean for then the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences. But when I tried to actually piece things together, I realized that the history was much more complicated than that. So 1967, the university started their Department of Computer Science, as far as we can tell, the second oldest in the country. Then in 2005, the College of Computing and Information was developed, and computer science moved in there along with the Department of Information Studies. And that is the reason why engineering courses have the prefix in the schedule of I, which makes a lot more sense to me trying to figure out why they picked I of all letters for engineering, but now I get it.
It used to be an R.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the College of Nanoscale Science and Engineering, the original one, was founded in 2004. And of that original college, there are 11 current faculty and 2 emeritus faculty who date back quite a ways with that. Then they disappeared from the university in 2014. College of Engineering and Applied Sciences was then started the next year. I think this was part of the big plan of, okay, we're losing what was our engineering programs, and now we'll start some new ones with a focus on computers. But then the dean, the founding dean, just was a little bit parochial in my mind, in that if it wasn't truly theoretical engineering and computer science, it wasn't appropriate for the college. So informatics left first, information sciences then also left, but we ended up with electrical and computer engineering and computer science, and environmental and sustainable engineering were added in 2018. So this was kind of the change, and you can see between 2014 and 2018, it was about annual. Something was happening. New departments started, changed names of colleges, all the rest of it. And hopefully now we are established with our name. There was an interesting process to come up with a name. The provost and the president said, you can have brainstorming, you can get faculty input, you can pick any name really you want, as long as you use the initial CNSE. So we went through a process and got faculty involvement. It was very interesting. Everybody wanted their own college in that, but I think everyone at this point is happy with that. So we currently have 4 departments in the college: computer science, nanoscale science and engineering, electrical and computer engineering, and environmental and sustainable engineering. And we are growing. So I'll get to some of our plans towards the end. Where are we located? All over the place. So we have the dean's office in electrical and computer engineering currently are in our, what we call the CNSE downtown. So that's the former Albany High School building down on the downtown campus. Wonderfully renovated. Computer science will join us when the other half of the building is done, which I've been told will be hopefully summer of 2027. They just started work on it. E-Tech will always be the home of our environmental and sustainable engineering department. They are there co-located with environmental sciences, with atmospheric sciences, so it makes sense. Plus, downtown does not have the same sort of hoods and infrastructure we need for those sorts of labs. Computer science is hanging out in this building. I gave them the option of moving down and temporarily being in Draper on the downtown campus, and they all said no. And now apparently they're starting to grumble. I'm like, sorry, I gave you the chance. You guys, you didn't want to move twice. And then Albany Nanotech is the home of our nanoscale science and engineering department. And obviously there is no attempt to recreate the facilities that they have over there. So we will always have multiple locations. So our newest home is CNSE downtown. We had the ribbon cutting last May. We're really excited about it. These are some of the architectural renderings. But the auditorium there, we are updating the seats for modern body sizes, including leg room, which is one of my big things, and making sure that the auditorium is up to date. We're keeping the historic seats on the second balcony. So there's an orchestra and 2 balconies, and we're keeping the historic wooden seats up on that second balcony as an idea of what things used to be. But it will have over 800 seats once it's done.
The existing downtown campus.
This is the auditorium in the former Albany High School. So
You've got one next door as well.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, in Page Hall. Yep. They are making this one fully ADA compliant, which is great because I keep getting told Page Hall is not. And so this will be a great space. We're excited to use it for some of our larger classes, for our events, so that'll be great. And the only thing that's keeping us sane is the purple line. So that goes from Nano down to downtown in about 15 minutes. And it's free for students and faculty. So even I take it if I'm heading up to the Nano complex, because right now they are under construction. So it's faster for me to take the bus than it is for me to drive up, park somewhere, walk, who knows how long. And is that better? There are glares, aren't there? Sorry. But anyway, so amazingly, the ECE students who are coming downtown for labs, and then the grad students and upper division lectures are also downtown, have not been complaining. At least the complaints have not reached me. So I think that transition is going well. So these are our educational programs. Basically, all of our departments have BS, MS, PhD. In the nano side, we have both nanoscale engineering and nanoscale science, as well as at the grad level, a nanobioscience program. We also just started 3 graduate certificates in semiconductor engineering, trying to make things help the population that's around here, and they're online, so it can be more broader than that, to actually make sure they're up to what they need for the industry that's coming around here. So these are, I think President Rodriguez would appreciate the fact that I'm pointing to our 5 pillars of our strategic plan, because that's how I wanted to organize things, to talk about how our college is really working to meet these objectives. So student success. One of the biggest hurdles any new engineering program has to overcome really to be successful, unless you're at somewhere like MIT and you don't care, is accreditation by ABET. And you can't pursue that until you have at least 1 graduate. So we now have accreditation for all of our BS programs in engineering, as well as our BS in computer science. And so we're very happy about that. Future programs in engineering will also undergo accreditation, and we will probably apply for accreditation from the Applied Sciences Commission of ABET for our nanoscale science undergraduate degree. So we're very happy with that process. We are focused on student success. It's a big part of what we try to do in the college. That starts with our first-year engineering programs. For several years, we had a World of Engineering and Applied Sciences, so basically the name of the college, but it was growing too large. Computer science enrollment is growing very rapidly, and electrical and computer engineering also growing quite rapidly. So we now have 2 separate learning communities, one for computer science and one for engineering. And then they co-meet for a lot of the semester, along with the 0 credit FYE course, Uni 99. And so the students come in, they get to know each other. The first day of class, they do a team building experience where how big of a tower can you build that supports a marshmallow on top with tape, string, and spaghetti. So we have a little competition for them with that. We introduce them to the majors, we bring in alumni, we introduce them to potential careers, all of that. So it's trying to build a sense of community from that first semester. One of the first things I did when I got here, so the first spring semester, is I opened a learning center. And basically that provides peer tutoring. Engineering courses generally are not covered by university tutoring centers. And so we wanted to make sure that those were covered, that students had the support they needed. And so we opened in spring of 23, and that should say fall of 24 statistics there. We cover 23 classes, basically the 300 level classes in computer science, electrical and computer engineering, and environmental and sustainable engineering. Nanoscale science and engineering is still small enough that they kind of self-identify peer teachers. As we grow that program, we will add peer teachers for them as well. And we get a lot of students that come in and seek out assistance. So we train the teachers not to do the homework for them, to try to talk them through the process, all of that. And the students have really appreciated that assistance.
These are undergrads?
These are,
or whatever.
so the peer teachers are a lot of undergrads when I can get them, or master's level students. So, and they go through, and I double check transcripts, but they identify which of the undergraduate classes they are most comfortable with. And there's then a schedule that says, this class at this time between 3 and 9 p.m., Monday through Thursday. Figure out, and for some of the computer science classes, we've got people there every single shift because we have so many
Paid
students.
or just
Oh, they get paid $17 an hour.
give you some encouragement. I tried something like this in the math department decades ago, and you got a little bit of money to pay undergraduates to sort of pure teach
Mhm.
other undergraduates. And the faculty loved it because they could assign more homework because somebody was. And the students loved it because they had help, but the ones that went totally bonkers on it were the peer teachers. We had a huge number of them going to graduate school because they loved it.
Well,
So
good.
that was a surprise, the real winner.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see whether we get something similar. So, I mean, especially for some of our international students, working on campus is their only option. And they are great at sitting down and helping a student walk through some of this. So they get a little bit of money to help offset expenses. We get an opportunity for students to feel supported. So student engagement is also a really big part of student success. The more engaged students are, the better they do academically. So we look for as many opportunities for experiential learning as we can. Internships, obviously, design projects in classes, outside of classes, national competitions, if we can find them. As soon as we have a few more engineering departments, we will start either a Formula SAE team or a SAE Baja team, something that they can work together in one of those national competitions. We're also looking at study abroad and seeing how we can integrate that. I'll get into more detail on that later. We did last spring have a completely student organized hackathon called Hackademian. So it was I think it was about a 36-hour event. They brought in speakers from industry. They split into teams to design a video game over that period of time. They convinced a young faculty member from electrical and computer engineering to stay the night with them in E-Tech because they had to be a responsible individual. And so it's, I think, something that they really enjoyed, and they're already planning for it for this coming spring, which I'm glad. Last year, I think we planned it in about a month, which is much too short a time to really get an event like this that had over 100 participants organized. We also look for opportunities for students to show leadership and develop those networks. So these are our current student associations. We have SWE, the National Society of Black Engineers, and the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers as our main affinity groups. ACMW is the American Society of Computing Machinery, I believe is ACM, and we've got a women's chapter established for them. I think they decided they had too many women in SWE, and so it was time to divide out computer science from the other engineers. That's not something I will ever be upset about. So we're really trying to build that sense of community, give them opportunities to network. We send some of the leadership team to the national meetings. We send a recruiter there to recruit for graduate school, and we also then send some of the students to go and network at those meetings. They have some of the best career fairs out of any engineering conference, and so we're glad to be able to provide that to them. So our enrollment has been growing other than the pandemic slip. So we're excited that we are continuing to grow. We have overall in the college, including intended students, just over 1,400 students this year. We just convinced the registrar and admissions that we are no longer going to use the intended student designation. No one can tell me what gets a student into that versus a direct admit. And all of our students take engineering classes their first semester anyway. So why are we putting them into this holding pattern? So we will no longer have to account for students.
As I roughly recall, the undergraduate programs at Nano, when they were created, had admission requirements, and the admissions committee also, we had a separate undergraduate admissions committee which reviewed those.
We are not to the size right now that I could justify that. If we get to the point where that program is large enough, I will absolutely go back to that. I've done that before in other programs.
That's valuable.
Yeah, and it's great to be able to pick the students that excuse me, have the background to succeed and know what they're getting into.
And sometimes the faculty could look at an undergraduate record and just say, kid's on the edge, but I know they're gonna make it because of this, and this.
Yep.
And the kid came in and did splendidly.
And we do have, right now, I haven't seen students because of academics shift from nano to ECE, but there are pathways. And the provost wants us to have additional pathways, landing strips for students that may be struggling and help them find
That's
something.
great, because we had one engineering student here who spent most of his 4 years working with the folks out on the end, and was doing all kinds of internet stuff for what they did. He probably would have been closer to ECE,
Mhm.
but still was happy to get his nano engineering
Right.
degree.
Because it was what was available at the
And
time.
did his senior, well, he did his senior project and things like
Yeah.
that, but he went out and had a job immediately for
Right.
it. But yeah, I could see having the pathways when somebody says, oh, the light goes on. I'm almost here, but I'd really be a better fit here,
Yep,
and it doesn't cost me any time in college.
exactly. Yeah,
So when a freshman arrives, they're given the opportunity to join one of these majors.
yes.
Oh, cool. So the advisors, may bring it up and suggest they consider this.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
they indicate when they apply that they are interested in X major, and I think there are ways for students to also say, I have no idea. But I admit that I have not looked at the application on that front, but there's probably an undecided option. And we'll have to figure out how we maybe can connect with the students who just purely say undecided and talk with the advisors about, well, if they indicate that they like these sorts of things, have them come to some of our events.
So if they
But-
check that they're interested in some of these subjects, they'll be channeled into
Correct.
bingo, becoming the major and starting the major courses
Yeah.
semester one.
Yep.
Cool.
And if they don't, the problem is if they don't start in the math, science, computer science classes
Yeah.
first semester, they will not graduate in 4 years.
Yeah.
So moving on, so that was student success. Moving on to diversity and inclusion. I was curious. The university, we pride ourselves on the diversity of our students. When I looked at various classes that I was interacting with, that seemed to carry over for the college, but I wanted to know where we actually stood. And when we come to underrepresented minorities, so that's African American, Hispanic, Latino, Native American, Pacific Islander, and I included multiracial, which I know that multiracial may capture the two fully represented ethnic groups, but we still were seeing a good number. So of our direct admits and declared in the yellow, we're at about 43% underrepresented minority. For our intended students, we're at 60%. So one of the things I'm going to be trying to do is go in and figure out, can I identify academic barriers that are making it more likely that some of our intended students of color are not actually continuing on in the field. One of the things I really though am touting is because universities can consider themselves a minority serving institution if they have at least 10% Asian and Asian students. I think they grouped Asian and Pacific Islander into that 10%. I'm amazed that someone somewhere decided that that was what would classify for minority serving, because in STEM, of course, that's not a problem typically for us, right? But when we look at all of our students, and so we're talking about Black, Indigenous, and people of color, we are currently at, for our entire undergraduate population, over 75% BIPOC, which to me is great. One of the reasons I came here, I'd spent 25 years at Wayne State, which is also a very diverse campus. I then went up to Michigan State, really appreciated the endowed professorship. I looked at classrooms of all white students, and it was driving me a little nuts. So the fact that I have the opportunity to come back and teach and help develop programs for, again, a diverse set of students is something that I really like.
Yes, but what percentage of that are the Asian students?
So, I mean, if we look at the previous slide, let's see if I can go, yeah. So we're at just over 50% underrepresented minorities for the entire undergraduate population. And then we go up to, so 25% are Asian.
Okay.
So more than the population of the country, but I think we've got a really good balance, and it's something that I'm very happy with. And that does not include any international students. So any international students are counted as other. We do have to work on our number of women. So not surprisingly, fairly much in line with most engineering colleges around the country, we are a little under 20% women, the rest men. Hopefully we'll be able to get some programs that interest them, and then also provide some support systems for them to join us. Okay, on to research excellence. So these are kind of our overlapping groups of primary research interests. So artificial intelligence, semiconductors or chips, sustainability, and health. And when you look at the projects that faculty in the college are undergoing, they fall primarily in those areas. Occasionally there's something that's a little bit off the beaten track. But with the reunification with nanoscale science and engineering, we quintupled our research expenditures. They give us one more staff member. So we are now, I think, second only to the College of Arts and Sciences in terms of total amount of research expenditures and research expenditures per faculty member. We are the top group on campus. 67% of our grants come from the federal government, which is one of the key things for rankings. We have a lot of different areas that covers, including in some of the bio areas of tissue engineering, molecular signaling, biomimetics. So that's already going on in the nano department, and is really kind of already helping us to build what will eventually be a department of biomedical engineering. So just a few highlights on the research front. I'm sure everybody has heard about AI Plus at this point. Hopefully you've had somebody in here to talk about the provost vision for that. So we are leading on some of the educational aspects of it, obviously, but also on some of the hardware, both use of hardware and developing new hardware. So we are very happy to have the new NVIDIA core system on campus to really allow our faculty to take advantage of the speed, not have it be all cloud-based, so that increases their computational speed. You don't have lags. So that is a great aspect for us as we bring in faculty who are interested in AI. And we got 6 of the 27 lines for the cluster hire in AI Plus. And then, of course, the most recent announcement on computers in terms of the IBM computer, which is bringing the new AIU hardware to campus, to the Nano Complex. And again, very high levels of computational speed, significantly increasing the ability to look at some of these large language models or other models of artificial intelligence and machine learning. The Center for Emerging AI Systems was just announced recently, and we just today announced the initial recipients of the joint grants between faculty and IBM. Out of the 5 grants awarded, there are engineering faculty on 3 of them. So we're excited about that. Again, I feel at times only a slight bit guilty in that I have been in the right place at the right time to lead a college that is really positioned well to take advantage of some of the important things in this country. So on AI, we had already had great faculty in AI. We've been able to add to them. And then on the other side, on nano, on semiconductors, we have been able to be in the right place at the right time. So we're one of the lead universities on the $40 million NordTech Hub, which is sponsored by the Department of Defense. That brought in $5 million to our teaching fab facilities to upgrade some of that equipment. So we're excited about being able to do that. We also, while the NSTC did not come to UAlbany, obviously as the only co-located academic programs at the Albany Nanotech Complex, we will be playing a large part in the activities they do there with respect to education especially. And so we're very excited about that. We try to get undergraduates into research as early as possible. There are opportunities from them from freshman year, both summer research programs and academic year programs. And then hopefully you guys have had a chance to go to Showcase and see some of the students' products of their work. But we try to get all of our undergrads who are doing research to also present at Showcase. We also have them present their capstone design projects there. And so you'll see a lot of the students out there with the prototypes that they developed for their senior design. We are building our international connections. It's always a challenge when it comes to engineering to have as much international connection or opportunity as we'd like. And so that's something that I am trying to be very conscious about in terms of what we are doing in the study abroad area. So we are looking at all of these 3 parts. For study abroad, we are sending some students this summer over to Suzhou University of Science and Technology for an environmental engineering summer school. We already have classes that have been identified at Universitat Politécnico de Valencia in Spain that are equivalent to our classes. And if students can go somewhere for a summer or a semester and take classes that they know are equivalent, then they are willing to do that because they don't fall behind. So we are going to be working with advisors, making sure that they know what sorts of things they can take while they're there. And then I'm going to take a group of students over this current summer over to Polytech Grenoble in France. For one of the new programs that I'll talk about, I'm developing a design for society class that will count for the university DEIJ qualification for Gen Ed. And really, it's built on the premise that as engineers, we should not assume that we understand the user needs of the thing we're designing. I'm not sure most 25-year-olds can understand what somebody who is 65, 70, 80 years old needs in terms of a device that they are going to use. The same for things that individuals with disabilities are using, or children, or any other different group. So students may not have access in certain parts of the country to high-speed internet. Well, then don't design something that requires that as your only means of communication. So students need to learn that they have to ask these questions. In biomedical engineering, it's drummed into their head from the freshman year. What I've found is that most traditional fields of engineering, they don't learn that. They get handed a list of, here's what this person needs, go design it. They don't go out and talk to their end users. So I'm developing this class so that they will learn that there are differences in what we need to be looking for based on somebody's age, race, socioeconomic status. We will look at the challenges of designing for developing countries. Is it appropriate to use different safety factors in a developing country than it is what we're required to use in the US? This is a big one in biomedical engineering. Things don't have to be FDA approved to use in other countries. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. What are the discussions that need to take place? So anyway, my thought was for this first time, I'm going to offer it this summer and have an option of 2 weeks in France at the end of it. So we'll do 6 weeks on campus or online. Students can then complete their project, either coming over with me or staying here. We'll have teams that work across time zones, which is the way engineering works nowadays. And so students will get some of that international experience. And so I'm looking very forward to going to a country where, yes, it's been a long time since I spoke the language, but I can at least read the language. And rather than being in places that's not the case. So hopefully that will go off this summer. We have some joint degree programs. The top one are Bachelor of Science in Computer Science here at Albany, plus a BS in Computer or Software Engineering from Chongqing University of Posts and Telegraphs in China. Has been around for quite a while. The students do 3 years in China with some of our faculty teaching courses for them, and then they come over for their 4th year. This has seen a big drop off post-pandemic of students actually coming to Albany for their 4th year. So we're trying to get them more integrated into campus, understanding what we offer. The perception of the US being a dangerous place is not one that we can easily fight, but we'll hopefully get more of those students coming. We are just starting some joint graduate programs, one in China at SUST, one in Spain at UPV. The UPV one is with electrical and computer engineering and their energy technologies for sustainable development. And the one in China is on environmental engineering. So we're excited to see how those go. And that students going both directions. So it would include some of our students starting here and then going overseas to complete the 2 degrees. And then we're building collaborations, both educational and research, with universities in India, France, Spain, trying to expand those connections. China is always iffy right now. China was iffy for the last decade or so, but I think it's getting more iffy with some of the technologies. That undergraduate program, everything that's taught in that program is in textbooks. So there's no risk of sharing something that is a little more risky, but anything with research, I get nervous about. And so we'll see how we can develop those opportunities. So the last pillar is service and engagement, and the mission of the college is science and service to society. And I really am happy with everything that was going on before I even got here. So we will continue to build these connections, but they were already existing. So one of the things is there's a lot of research in the college that is trying to tackle current societal challenges, whether that's related to the environment and can we build things in a more sustainable fashion. On the research side, we're seeing a lot of crossover between sustainability and semiconductors right now, as the realization is the more manufacturing that takes place here, the more those nasty chemicals are going to be showing up here as waste in the manufacturing process. Can we pick better materials so that we're not producing lots of PFAS waste that we then don't really have ways to get rid of? So we're trying to look at things on the front end to try to improve the sustainability rather than just mitigating the damage that occurs. We're looking at health disparities. Are there ways to do quick and accurate diagnostics? Nate Katie, our Associate Dean for Research, is just submitting to FDA a microfluidic system for better diagnosis of Lyme disease, which seems like for the most part has been diagnosed based on symptoms. And okay, yes, you've developed this rash, but so we're going to assume that you do, and we're going to assume that you will treat it. But there hasn't been really an inexpensive and accurate way to do it. So we're hoping that that will take off and help everybody. Obviously, AI being applied across the board. So AI in and of itself can be neat, but what you want to see is AI actually being used to solve societal problems. And so our faculty are collaborating with faculty in education, with faculty from downstate for the medical school, looking at sustainability, all of these things. So a lot of those AI projects you will see collaborative with other groups, other faculty, other departments. We are doing a lot related to workforce development, and that starts with K-12 STEM programs. So we need to get the kids interested in STEM, understanding what the opportunities are, irrespective of what socioeconomic group they come from. That includes programs with Girl Scouts, our Family Day that's happening this coming Saturday, many different things. We are developing joint programs with community colleges and companies for more focused technician level, so pre-associates or associates level workforce development. We can't offer an associate's degree at Albany, but we can work with them and have their students come and take advantage of some of the facilities we have through our Centers of Excellence and Center for Advanced Technology. We have some tools that they can use, both virtual and real world, to better understand what they would be seeing when they actually get into a manufacturing environment, those sorts of things. And we're also looking at micro-credentials for current students or students who have graduated to come back and upskill. And also, as I mentioned, the graduate certificates, providing a way for people to make sure that they are positioned to take advantage of all the opportunities that are coming into the state and the region. We are also trying to connect with downtown. So none of us ever expected that as we were about to move into the downtown campus, St. Rose would be going poof. So I feel a greater responsibility to make sure that we are connecting as much as possible to the businesses downtown that we're relying on St. Rose. So one of the things that we have done, it was the college's idea, and then we've been joined in this with the other two colleges that are down on the downtown campus, so Rockefeller and the School of Social Welfare. We have developed these little passport books. And we went around, not me, thankfully now it's my director of student services went around and talked with companies, stores, whether they're restaurants, little markets, a couple of hairdressers, all sorts of things that are easily walkable from the downtown campus. We're not charging them a penny. We are giving them a stamp. And then when students or faculty or staff bring their passport in, and if they buy something, they can stamp the passport, and then that individual can come back and have it validated and get various things of swag. So we are trying to encourage them to go out, and it's not just one per business, so they can go back to businesses multiple times. But we're excited to see whether this works at actually getting the students to connect with the businesses in the area. Nanovember has been an outreach thing for many years from the Nano department, so we're continuing that. For the last 2 years, 2 of the 3 lectures have been given in E-Tech rather than on the Nano campus because it's easier to get people in there. We are doing the Nano Family Day again on Saturday, again at E-Tech, so that we don't have issues again with security. But that was widely taken advantage of last year, so we're hoping for large crowds again this year. And we have a new makerspace in the new building downtown. And one of the things I'm trying to do is make sure that I'm going to start off with Albany High School and Tech Valley High School and say, if you guys want to come in and use our space during your fabrication time period for your first robotics team, I'm happy to have you guys come in. Get the students in there. They have access to space. They have access to tools, all of that. Find a connection with the college and really provide that for them without charging them a usage fee. So if you go to a lot of the other maker spaces, the professional ones around, they're going to want some money back. We just want for materials to be covered. So if they bring in materials, great, no charge. If they use some of ours, we'll charge them at cost. And that'll be it. But I'm looking forward to that. So just a few of our future activities. We are really trying to develop master's programs that students who are working full-time may be interested in taking. I've had a lot of pushback, I will admit, from faculty when I say, can we teach all these classes later in the afternoon and into the evening? And then the little voice in the back of my head goes, why are they complaining? You did it for 25 years when you had 2 little kids and all the rest of it. Because Wayne State, at one point, had the 6th largest graduate enrollment in engineering in the country. And that was because our programs were designed for working engineers. So I'm not trying to get the grad enrollment up that high, but I want to make things easier for students who are interested in coming back and coming to school part-time. We are going to be looking at improving retention. So trying to get into the understanding what factors may have students transition out. The provost really wants us to have, we have a BA in computer science, which is kind of the soft landing, staying in computer science. They can also go over to information technology if they want to. She wants me to start something on the same line for engineering. I think that what we landed on is an affordable program. And this copy is something that a colleague of mine has just started at Michigan State, is what's going to be a Bachelor of Technology Engineering. There are fields called engineering technology, which are much more hands-on, and they're accredited by another commission at ABET. But she's managed to develop a curriculum that she was happy to share with me, where they still get an engineering degree, but it's still more hands-on and less math than our typical fields in engineering. So most areas of engineering, you have to go through differential equations and linear algebra. To be honest, the vast majority of engineers do not use those in the workforce. So teaching them math more in a way that they can conceptualize what's happening, learn how to use the tools that every engineer out there uses on a daily basis, those sorts of things, but still be an engineering degree, which will then keep their options open when they want to move on to further degrees. So that's coming down the pike in a little bit. And we are building better pathways for our transfer students, focusing on community colleges, The dual admission programs are going to be great because we'll be able to connect with those students early. If there's a class that we'd like them to take their first year or two that they don't offer at the community college, they can come and take it from us and still pay their community college tuition. So we just want to make sure that we talk with them so that they aren't behind when they get to Albany. Looking at more micro-credentials, so that's a big one. And we do have programs like nanoscale science and engineering and environmental and sustainable engineering that have room for growth in their classes. So we're trying to get more students interested. We will be starting some new academic programs. So mechanical engineering is one of the most highly enrolled engineering disciplines nationwide. So that was the first one we decided to start. There is no public mechanical engineering option in the capital region. So we should attract students that way, but I wanted to make ours a little different. So students will have two options, mechanical and mechatronic engineering. So students who are interested in robotics, whether it's used for healthcare or manufacturing, there's a need for that in this area. The entire semiconductor industry, manufacturing industry is robotically driven. And so they'll need that. But then as I not half jokingly say to my colleagues, mechanical and design engineering for people like me who think anything electrical is magic. And I got through my required electrical engineering classes, but I couldn't tell you to this day what any of things do. Basically, I tried to find a fluid mechanics equivalent to whatever I was drawing for my circuit diagram. And if I couldn't, I still don't know what an inductor does because there's no equivalent. But so the design engineering program, mechanical and design engineering, will have a strong design component where they really understand product design and those aspects. By having it be a dual named degree and the top one is a dual accredited degree, it gives the students more opportunities. And so we're really excited about that. We think that'll set us apart from some of the other options like down at New Paltz or for more money at RPI, those sorts of things. And then after that, and hopefully fingers crossed, that program will start fall of 25, so not too long. The next on the slate, there's an architectural program at HVC that their chair says they have to go to Buffalo if they want a public option for their second 2 years or pay to go to RPI. And those are their options basically. So he says, if you can start the second 2 years of a program, we will have 20, 30 students a year ready to come in. And the provost likes this program because in terms of faculty research, it's cheap because it's only computers. So that's my next one up. Biomedical engineering is not a cheap program to start. We've got some core faculty. We are going to start with biomechanics as an option in the mechanical engineering programs, but we'll work towards that fairly quickly. And the materials science is repurposing faculty from nanoscale science and engineering and chemistry and seeing what they can pull together. And currently our debate is there a market for students with a bachelor's degree in material science, or should we focus on the master's and PhD? And we'll talk to companies around here and see what they think, because I've been at many places that have got rid of their material science bachelor's program over the years. And I don't want to start a program if we don't think that there's going to be the market for those students. So with that, I hope that gives you a little bit of an intro into what we are going to be doing and what we're doing now. And I would be happy to answer any questions you have. Yes.
Is anyone in the college dabbling with quantum computing?
Yes. Quite a few people in the nanoscale science and engineering department. One of our newest hires, Walid Rejim, that was his main focus. He was brought in as a new assistant professor with an EIP looking at quantum computing.
Interesting.
And that's about where my knowledge on what quantum computing starts. I don't know. I think they're trying to, as far as I know, this is where I need to have my associate dean for research next to me so that he can answer the tough questions. They're trying to better understand what they need to do in order to then build the machines to make it work. So, I mean, there's still some fundamental questions, I think.
I've heard that there are machines built and sold, actually,
Okay.
but I haven't heard anything about them actually doing it.
There's a machine at RPI.
That they just
The quantum computer is running there right in RPI.
So as I said, that gets me into computer hardware, which is beyond my ability as a biomechanical engineer.
I'm wondering, in programs that are, say, as you said, more hands-on engineering bachelor's programs, if there's a place for, say, in place of the traditional linear algebra and differential equations courses where the students use the analysis software that either exactly or like what engineers use.
Mhm.
You know, like for EE, they would say they would use SPICE
Mhm.
and actually use that as sort of slipping in the concepts of differential equations and linear algebra by applying the tools that engineers use.
Yeah, I think I've seen places that have done really well with some applied mathematics courses, and part of me thinks that this should be how we're doing all of our math classes for our engineers. But especially for these classes where students are hitting a wall with the math, showing them what the equations mean, giving them access to tools and showing them how the tools work to solve some of the equations. I mean, we're still expecting students in differential equations to solve those by hand.
Yeah.
And no one is doing that when they get out to the real world. So yes, it's good for someone who's going to be a PhD to be able to do that, because your advisor may ask you to derive something, but for most of the engineers, even if you are going to get a master's degree, you're not going to be doing any of that derivation or anything.
So the technical question, in the real world,
Mhm.
to what extent do engineers use the linearity property of linear differential equations? Like understand it that you can decompose a solution into a sum of components, is that?
Probably innately, they probably do it quite frequently. In terms of formally going through and developing the equations that way, probably not.
Yeah.
But in terms of how you're looking at the problem and saying, okay, how can I approach this? And one of the key things for engineering, because we have so many tools, is being able to look at the answers that are given that you get from the tool to say, does this make sense or not?
Yeah.
And if you understand the underlying phenomena, and you know these basic ideas, okay, well, this should be happening, then you can look at it and go, no, that doesn't make any sense. And I think that's one of the key things that we need to get students
There
to.
should be, I would guess at this, that engineers really need to understand the distinction between linear and nonlinear phenomena.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Some people, I think, find that moving to New York as an academic leader can be a challenging prospect. Could I just ask, what do you consider to be your biggest challenge, or what, if you want to put it in a different way, what is your highest priority as an academic leader on campus?
So I think the biggest challenge is the number of hoops we have to jump through to get new programs established. I mean, well, it's not even just SUNY, right? So, I mean, I would accept it. I was used to, first of all, I've come from a unionized university with strong faculty governance, so that does not throw me at all. Amazingly, somehow or another, for 6 years, the College of Engineering, by whatever name, had none. When I got here, there were no bylaws, there was no faculty governance. And I'm like, guys, how? I think it was because most of the faculty were early career and they didn't know that they should be asking for these things.
Yeah.
So I've been pushing it. Literally, they elected their representatives last year, fall of 23, and never met. And I finally, at our retreats this year, said, I got you guys to write bylaws. I got you guys to elect representatives. I am not setting up the meeting. So we're moving forward on that. So we're doing okay. But no, what surprised me was the outside of SUNY requirements for approval. That's something I'm not used to. And that just makes it so much slower. And then the fact that we can't even talk about the program publicly until it's actually approved. makes recruiting for your first cohort of students next to impossible.
Are you talking about the New York State Education Department?
Yeah,
Yes.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could tell you a horror story about the nano engineering program and how they finally, after complaining, after several years, they finally dispatched, I think it was an associate something or other or whatever, so we could actually sit with them face to face and explain what we were doing. And all of a sudden, things moved faster. It was magic.
I mean, I've been very happy. There has been little pushback on campus. I know that some other programs have faced some struggle getting through Senate committees and things. No one debates whether or not mechanical engineers are needed, will get jobs, et cetera. So, you know, that's nice.
Is it an issue? Especially the academic governance. About the engineering and these other programs at the undergraduate level. Having enough credits in the major requirements.
So actually, the thought is that there are too many credits in the major requirements and not.
Like, who thinks that?
The undergraduate committee of the Senate, but
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
so, and I thankfully, Rick Fogarty gave me very clearly what the state's rules were on credits.
Oh.
Which again was something I was not used to. I'm used to meeting ABET's requirements on credit distribution, not, oh, you need to have certain number of liberal arts and science credits.
Bachelor of Science,
For-
60.
yeah.
Bachelor of Arts, 90.
Right, and I didn't want to turn it into a B.Tech program and go and have lower. So we got all that worked out. But it is a real challenge, and we did get some pushback on, well, why is so much general education pushed to the last 2 years? It's like, well, because they have to take so much math and science in their first 2 years. So in my memo of response, I went through the programs they'd already approved and said, this is the precedent. I took one of their, I found one recommendation where I was able to shift things. So I was able to move one class down. So that made them happy, but it's unfortunate. It just, if you take a traditional, what kids are told to do by advisors, come in, explore, take some classes, take your gen eds, figure out what you want to do. You can do engineering, but you're not going to graduate in 4 years.
Yeah.
And the national time to degree for engineers is 4.5. So we will just, I mean, we're going to make these programs achievable in 4 years, but tough to achieve, and we'll adjust as we need to. Yes.
And just to follow up along those lines, what institutions with engineering programs would you count as your biggest competitor, or who are your aspirational peers?
So, I mean, the aspirational one in the region would be RPI. So that's fairly easy. RPI has the benefit of being around for so long that they can start a new major and people will come in and flock to it. They also have much smaller enrollments than we do as a university. In terms of others beyond that, I think Clarkson is a competitor. If we try to get students coming down, we're much cheaper than Clarkson, so we'll try for that. Soon, some of the SUNY comprehensives are. We'll have to see how much between Binghamton and Buffalo, us and Stony Brook, how much tension there is between the 4 university centers. The deans try to work well together. We have various groups that we all attend together. We don't try to be competitive. I honestly think there are plenty of students who want to study engineering, and so we should be able to accommodate all of them without having any problems. So we'll see going forward, but it is interesting with the 4 university centers and essentially all the SUNY 4 years charging the same tuition. You can't use the argument of we're a stronger program and will cost you less. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to differentiate our programs, is so that they will stand out.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have 2 questions, actually. You mentioned about the international issue of recruitment. What about out of state? Have you had any success?
Not much so far. I think that we can do more. The university is interested in doing more. They are just setting up a flagship 50 program. So out of state students will only pay what they would pay for their flagship institution in their home state. Hopefully that, I'm assuming it can be balanced budget wise. It will depend on probably which state you're looking at as to whether that's good for us or not. If you count University of Michigan as the flagship, we'll still get a ton of money because University of Michigan in-state is almost as much as Purdue out of state. So it's not cheap. So we'll see. So there is some attention. We're D1 for sports, which is a way that a lot of people learn about universities, but we're not one of the big D1 schools. So that's makes that a challenge. But we're trying to have a presence with the college around at various places. And the more time we spend at conventions and talking with engineering students, the more we get into the conversation about that Albany has engineering. We have things that are unique. I will admit I get frustrated that Purdue seems to be ahead of us in terms of what they are presenting on the semiconductor side, but they are not ahead of us in what is available. When I talked to our vice president for communications, she's like, the marketing budget for the College of Engineering at Purdue is about 10 times our overall university marketing budget.
Wow.
They just have more money to get out there, and everybody knows the Purdue name when it comes to engineering. So we're trying to figure out ways to get it across that, hey, you're interested in nano? Come study and work on semiconductors here, because there's much more semiconductor industry in the Tech Valley than there is in middle of nowhere, Indiana. And I know this, both of my kids graduated from Purdue, so I know exactly what industry and how much their tuition is. Yeah, I think that we can do that, and it's going to be getting the word out about what we are doing, what we have available that will hopefully invite some students in.
And the second question is, you mentioned St. Rose. Have you had the opportunity to look at any buildings or facilities they have there for labs or just to get the space that might be useful for you?
So I know that at the university level, Todd Foreman's been looking at that to see if there's anything that's worth it. I haven't targeted things, but they know what I'm wanting to do engineering wise. And their view is that the downtown campus will really become an engineering hub. So if there are buildings that are slightly adjacent at St. Rose, that's not a bad location. So I'm trusting them to do that. We'll see what happens with the auction. And who knows?
I've been through the science labs there. Good luck.
Okay. Hey, one of the things I'm hoping for and that I've opened up is maybe using alumni quad for more housing, trying to make it nicer. And then it would be wonderful for engineering upper class students who want to still live on campus. So we'll see. These are some longer term things. The fact that we still own alumni quad is great because it means that there are options available. So other questions? Yes.
Yeah, you used AI quite a few times. It's a pillar of the university's AI plus. How do you define it?
So
Except as a neighbor, and you talked about it.
I don't know, my attitude is, what it is more important than how you define it. But
So I mean, what I view it is, it's a computer that's trained on some set of data that can then go and apply those same algorithms to understand a different set of data. So, and ideally, if you really want it to be artificial intelligence, it's one that can continue to integrate that new data in and therefore improve the predictive abilities with time.
So probably the best example of this, I think, still was Watson. And they actually had to struggle to teach Watson what it didn't know.
Right.
And generative AI is a very popular example. The provost told me that my Rumba was an example of generative AI. So I gave my, living will, I took it from my wife and I gave it to the Rumba. Now all it will tell me is which way to turn if I hit the dining room table like that. It's not, the problem is we use that term so loosely, and it really bothers me. Instead of saying, you got very specific in a hurry. This program,
Yes.
can learn.
Well, and I think that's realizing how to use each tool that's developed. So you can't take an AI system that's been trained in one area and say, oh, this is going to be great in another area. Generally, it's not going to have any idea. And as you said, AI systems don't know what they don't know and they'll make it up. And that's problematic when you don't know the answer or the field. So I think one of the ways we are going to be able to catch students at using generative AI to do their homework or anything else is they're not going to realize what BS that engine has just spat out that obviously is not true, but they don't have the experience to understand that. So, I mean, for some of the images I threw in here, I went to ChatGPT. It was wonderful because I'm currently, Kesh Casavadas and I are the only two mechanical engineers currently on campus, and mine is secondarily mechanical engineering. I had to write syllabi for every new mechanical engineering course. My first thought was to reach out to a colleague at Michigan State to say, hey, can you share what you have? And he's like, sure, but did you think about using ChatGPT? So that's what I did. They wrote the first draft. I went in and I edited it, and it was a heck of a lot faster than trying to write one from scratch.
Yeah.
Because I know the faculty are going to come in and change it anyway, right? So, I mean, I think there are times where it's good, but it's knowing where those boundaries are that's important.
It drives me crazy that we're using that term. I think that should be a constitutional amendment to make it free to use the.
That we should actually use machine learning or something of that site or to,
Something
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
My second question, it was about your time to completion. And for graduate programs, it's much easier than for undergraduate programs. We've had the same issue with the topological data analysis. It's just exploding with
Mhm.
undergraduates, and the only limit is hiring enough topologists. But for an undergraduate major, you have to know some topology, and you can't get to that without having a calculus sequence of linear algebra and
Yeah.
a bunch of other things. So what you're trying to do is admirable, but it's a challenge compressing it to the undergraduate.
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to do that, and there are creative ways to do it. And when I had conversations with students in the past, and the state of New York makes it more difficult, but I always said, you know what, if you have to take an extra year and maintain your sanity,
Yeah.
that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But in New York, where so many of the programs are specified as 4-year tuition assistance programs, I'm hoping that in the longer term, the college will get enough endowment that we can provide some tuition assistance for students in that 5th year if they need that time to complete their degree. That's something I did previously. We had presidential scholarships at Wayne State that covered 4 years. So the college covered the 5th, because for most of the programs, I didn't want to encourage students to try to do it in 4. They could go out and get jobs in the summer and make a ton of money, often hired as an engineer by some certain companies, and have their way into a post-graduation job. But I didn't want them taking 18 credits a semester while they were doing that. I mean, so it's trying to figure out what that balance is. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Michele, our final presentation of the fall semester will be in 2 weeks. And we'll welcome the director of the New York State